Welcome to the Anderson and Lindhardt Show. This is episode 27. Today we are joined by Hector Marquez. Hector is a school counselor at a local middle school, and he also coaches basketball at a local high school. In this episode, we talk about some of his experiences he's had as a basketball coach and as a school counselor. We also discuss mental illness and the importance of building strong relationships in order to help those who are struggling. Thank you for all of your support, and God bless.
Welcome back, Anderson and Lindhardt Nation. We're super excited to be able to bring on one of our favorite people, Hector Marquez. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Carter?
I'm doing good. Just hanging out in my movie room and excited to record this podcast.
Yeah, I'm excited to be on.
Yeah, so Hector was my high school basketball coach junior and senior year at Summit Academy. I hope you don't mind me saying that. I don't.
Oh, no.
Do you still work there?
I do not work there anymore.
Where are you at now?
I work at West Jordan Middle School.
There you go.
Out here in Utah for all the worldwide fans you guys probably have.
That's right. We're actually getting some. Carter was looking at the map. We have some listeners in some random states just like scattered. So hopefully
awesome.
We're reaching some souls far and wide.
Cool.
There you go. So do you want to introduce yourself a little bit, Hector?
Yeah, so my name is Hector Marquez, and I am currently a school counselor. Professionally, I was an English teacher to start for a few years, and then an opportunity came about to do some training in school counseling, and I've been a school counselor for about 7 years, and I worked at the high school, junior high, and elementary level, and have been able to make some pretty awesome connections through there. And outside of that professional realm, I do coach basketball. I've coached for over 17 years, and I currently coach at Bingham High School, and I also coach with one of the top programs in the country, an Adidas-sponsored 3SSB Utah Prospects.
Oh, wow.
Which I have to say, we had an amazing run with our 17U kids. We went to the Final Four, and we missed the championship game by about 6 points. But we have some amazing, talented kids, and two of them are actually in the NBA camp right now, the top 100 camp.
Wow, no way.
Playing in Orlando right now in front of all the NBA scouts. So it's an exciting time for them and for me as a coach as well.
That's a really cool opportunity to be able to work at with such high level athletes. How did you kind of come about that gig? Because I've known you've been doing that, but I've never really heard the story of how you got connected with that.
So I worked at the club level with the Salt Lake Rebels when I started here in Utah, which Carter did play on for a few years, and I kind of learned the ropes a little bit, and there came a point in my career where I kind of wanted to run things, differently or my way, or I just saw an opportunity for me to expand, and I went ahead and branched out and created my own club called Salt Lake Bounce, and we had some success with all of our players at different levels. And at one point we had 4th grade all the way up through high school, and some guys over at Utah Prospects approached me about coming over and helping out with them, and I thought it was a great opportunity, and I decided to kind of put my club aside and go on over and coach some of the best kids in the country. And it's been amazing. It's been amazing.
Dang, that's super cool. I'm just curious. I'm sure sometimes you feel a little bit inadequate when you're like coaching some of these athletes that are just like, like you said, they're playing at the NBA. What was it called?
The NBA. It's like the top 100 camp. So
okay,
it's the best 60 players in the country are
wow.
there.
I'm surprised they didn't invite me. That's weird.
You know what? Sometimes they miss a few guys here and there. So
Yeah.
don't feel too bad.
Anyways, I'm curious, how do you kind of get past like feeling like I'm sure they're just like they know exactly what they're doing and stuff like that. How do you overcome like maybe the imposter syndrome of like they can't learn anything from me?
I think when you pay attention to details and are able to kind of combat that self-doubt with a detailed approach, these players are so in tune to what they do that when you are able to help them modify something so little, they will notice the results immediately because they kind of have so many reps that they can notice one difference. Or even the best players at the highest level struggle, and to have someone in their ear telling them, hey, you're kicking your legs out too much. Oh shoot, I didn't know that. Or hey, you're popping your elbow out, or something so little means so much to them because they're trying to compete at the highest level. So it does take time, and it's just like anything, building a relationship of trust. It goes both ways, and in sports, you just build some amazing relationships that I mean, I love all those guys that we coach and I have coached, and so it's awesome. But it is tough. It's tough.
Yeah, I love that. Before we kind of get into what we were talking about before we hit record, but I love that principle of just like those small tweaks. Carter and I we talk about that a lot with each other. It's like, it's just these small little tweaks that if you make they will make a tremendous difference in your life. As well as, I like to watch like competition shows. Like right now I'm watching Lego Masters. If you guys haven't seen that, you have to watch it. Like they get like the best Lego builders in the nation. They build these enormous complex things out of Lego, and they get like 16 hours, 14 hours. Anyways, the further you get into the competition, everyone's builds are amazing. So the judges start kind of getting nitpicky, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like there's always something to be learned. There's always something you can improve on. And the further you're progressing in life, the changes are gonna become smaller, but they're still going to be just as important, if that makes sense. So I think that's great that you've seen that in your basketball, and I'm sure you've seen that in your counseling as well with certain students that you've been able to work with and building those relationships. So I want to kind of get into yours and Carter's relationship. Kind of like, when did it start? When did you first meet him or start coaching him? And just anything that comes along with that.
So like you said, Carter had an opportunity to come over to Summit Academy where I was coaching at, and I was a school counselor there at the time, and I don't remember if Carter was in my alphabet or not, but to me it was the same. If it was an athlete or just any student that needed help, like I'd help them. I wasn't just tied down to my alphabet. But Carter was a good high school player, and he could shoot the ball, and but just like any good shooter, sometimes you struggle. And I believe it was the senior year, we had taken a trip over to California, and we were playing some pretty tough teams, and I mean he was just struggling, and you could see it. Just it had taken over him, the struggle. And I mean, he was putting in reps, and he's just getting frustrated. And I was able to find us like a little side gym to put some extra work in, and we just worked on some basics. And you're talking about the little things with the Lego stuff, and
Yeah.
and I think that's the hardest thing about life in general is when you have to make those little changes, because when they're big and noticeable, it's no problem.
Yeah.
When they're little, it's painful. And it doesn't make sense, and you might not see the fruit of that change right off the bat. And so anyways, we just sat and talked, and it was just me and him in the gym, and we put up a lot of shots up, and they started to go in a little bit, and he started to feel a little bit better. At least I felt like he was feeling better. But I mean, I'm sure that frustration still sits in, and we go out and play the next game, and it's not like if he shot lights out, but they were falling a little bit more. And just like anything, it just takes time. It just takes time and confidence. And I just wanted him to know that even though he was struggling, in order for us to be successful, he still needed to shoot and make baskets. And so him not shooting was not going to help us.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and from there, I've always maintained like a good relationship with my ex-players and see how they're doing and stuff. And Carter knows that if he ever needs something, he can shoot me a text and I'll do whatever I can for him.
Yeah, no, I'll always remember that time. I think that time we went to the gym was bigger than basketball. Just like as a high schooler, you're going through so much that you think is a really big deal, and it might not be a super big deal at the time. And I just remember having an adult take time out of their day to almost like, in a church sense, minister to me and show me that they cared about me and they wanted me to be successful. Is something that I'll always remember, and just like has made a big difference in my life. Whether it's a hard day on my mission, I would like go back to like just that one time where we were able to just almost like get the stress out, get some of the wiggles out. And it's interesting because like you said, I didn't like have a amazing rest of the season. I didn't, just all of a sudden turn into Steph Curry. But for me, I knew that you had my back, and that brought a different type of confidence that I didn't have before, whether in life or in basketball. And so I just wanted to thank you for that, because that's been really like helpful for me, even up until this point in my life. So I appreciate that.
No, that's awesome. And were you did we win state with you?
Junior year.
Yeah. So we Carter and I share a pretty awesome thing where
Yeah.
not very many people can say and that they've won that mythical state championship. And
Yeah.
it was a crazy run but it was fun.
Yeah,
That's
we got
awesome.
matching rings.
Yeah, man. So I have a question, Hector. I'm sure with basketball, but especially with counseling, I'm sure you see mental health issues come up. And, it's a tricky subject because it's such a ginormous spectrum. I mean, all three of us here, I'm sure we've all felt anxiety, whether it's for starting your new job. So most people feel these different emotions, but when it becomes a mental illness, it can become debilitating for a lot of people. And so I guess the first question I'd like to ask is how, first off, so there's going to be a couple questions. First off, I'm kind of curious with all the students you work with, and I'm sure you don't have one-on-one relationships with all the students you work with, but I'm sure you have a few here and there. Are you seeing mental illness kind of more widespread, or is it still kind of just a select few? And then two, with the story with Carter, you still ministered to him, and you were, I guess, soft and careful with him, but you still pushed him, if that makes sense. And so how have you been able to find that balance, whether it's with players or with students, where they might be, say a student's completely stressed out with homework and they have a lot of anxiety and it makes it so they can't do their homework? How have you been able to, show love and care for them, but still show them that they can do it? So hopefully those two questions aren't too messy. But yeah, so how have you seen that?
So I'll start off with saying, when it comes to coaching and even being a school counselor, it's kind of like a tricky balance, because the answer could be as simple as 4 words, but there is a mental block with athletes or with students struggling that doesn't allow them to understand it at such a simple level. And so building those relationships, you can't fool kids know who's really for them and who's not, and who's using them for this and who's genuinely there for them. And for an adult to think that they're fooling a kid, that they're fooling themselves,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
kids see right through people. So when I'm working with athletes, it's just hard to have them trust you without a relationship. And so you have to put a lot of background foundation work before you can, see the fruits of your labor, to say, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then as for mental health, I feel like in the schools, I mean, and in general, it's that there's more of a norm or words associated to how you feel. Like when I was growing up, like anxiety and depression really wasn't a thing. It was just that you didn't feel comfortable, or that, man, I don't know if I want to do that, or
Yeah.
I'm going on my first date and I'm kind of nervous.
Yeah.
Now it has turned
Still
into,
get nervous going
yeah,
on dates.
I don't think that's ever going to go away for you, Carter. But like, like you go on a first date now and like, man, I'm feeling so anxious.
Yeah.
And it makes sense, but is it anxious or are you nervous? And I think that there's this misconception that you're not supposed to be nervous. It's okay to be nervous. And so these feelings that these young people get, they just don't know how to navigate them, and um, it's kind of like all these different mental issues that people have are categorized now, right? So you have the like anxiety, the OCDs, and the phobias. Like personally, there's some things that I'm OCD about. Do I have a problem? I don't think so. But when someone walks into my office and like, man, your office is super clean. And I'm like, well, yeah, everyone's office should be clean. But that's not the case. That's just my
Yeah.
work, right?
Yeah.
Or people that are scared of balloons, like that's strange to me, and like maybe to most people, but it's a category, right, of this mental issue or illness, right? At what level do you need help? That's different for everybody, right? um, then you go into like mood disorders like depression and bipolar. Like everybody gets a little bit sad. To say that you're depressed, I mean, that's a different level, right? Then people have like eating disorders and personality disorders, PTSD, and people who have like schizophrenia, like psycho, I guess psychotic disorders or whatever. So now there is this medical term to the way that young people feel, and they really attach themselves to that word.
Yeah.
And that why you hear anxiety and depression all the time. And it's tricky because parents don't know how to deal with that. It's like a topic you have to tiptoe around, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I was going to say, I'm really glad you're bringing this up. I feel like you're articulating this so well, because this is something that my mom and I have a really strong relationship. It's really centered on kind of like personal growth and things like that. So we're constantly talking about things like this. And just the other day, I was talking to her on the phone, and I have somebody who's pretty close to me who's just really not depressed, but having a lot of anxiety, and it's kind of causing him to stay very stagnant in his life. He's scared to move forward and things like that. And I think he's, I'm viewing it from the outside, so I don't know exactly what he's experiencing. I just kind of wanted to use an example. I think that he's maybe kind of felt some anxiety because he's in college. It's kind of an anxious part of your life naturally. And he's kind of done what you've said, where he's attached himself to this word, and this word holds this whole world behind it and with it. And so I feel like, the intention of making mental illness less taboo was well intended, but I feel like one of the consequences of doing that has made it so that when you do feel anxious for a date or for a new job, and you feel a little bit anxiety, you know, or a little bit of nerves, then kids might think, oh my goodness, I have anxiety. And then once they believe that, they're going to start creating evidence for themselves that they have anxiety disorder. And so it's really a tricky line. I'm glad you brought it up. And I think, again, I think you articulated it very, very well. And it is just a tricky subject because, yeah, you might feel anxiety to the point where you do need treatment or help. But as for me, I mean, dude, I feel anxiety a lot, the nerves, you know, but it's like, I was a little nervous to do this. I've never met you. And it was kind of exciting and there's some nerves, but it's just normal human emotion to undulate in your emotions. And it's actually good, in my opinion. You need the opposition. And so, yeah, I think there's this really fine balance where we need to be careful, where it's like, hey, it's okay if you feel anxious. It's okay if you get really sad. Like my cousins, their dog just died tragically. He just had a stroke in the heat. He's just barely turned 2 years old, and they're devastated right now. And does it mean that they have, depression disorder and they need to go seek a psychiatrist's help? You know, in this case, no, but they definitely are feeling heavy sadness right now. But that's just on the range of human emotions. So it is a tricky subject. It's case by case, person by person. And I think that is why, you know, you've found that it's so important to build those personal relationships one-on-one. That way you're going to be able to maximize the amount you can help somebody.
Yeah, and you had mentioned earlier before, like where you said you might not have a one-on-one relationship with all of your students that you're over.
Yeah.
And I mean, Carter can vouch for what I'm saying. Like I really make an effort to create some kind of one-on-one relationship with all of my students.
That's
And
great. Yeah.
it's a lot of work, but the thing that makes me sad is when I talk to students that go to different schools and I'm like, well, who's your counselor? They're like, I don't know. I've only talked to them one time. And I
Yeah.
never want anyone to say that about me because it's my job. It's my job. And if students don't even know my name, like I'm not doing my job. You know, like I'm here to advocate for students and for whatever future they choose, whether it's education or the workforce. You know, that's my job. And then that's when I can see it like, hey, there's something off about so and so. Like I need to call them in my office.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said, like I think the cultural shift that needs to happen with mental health is we need to make sure that our young people understand that it is okay to be sad. Like the majority of your life, you're gonna feel all these emotions and you're not gonna be happy 90% of your life. That's just not a
Truth.
realistic thing.
Yeah.
Like, you guys, when you serve a mission, like it's awesome, but it's not fun.
It
Like
probably,
all the
like, I
time.
think I was happier in high school, man.
Yeah, I
But I
mean,
loved the experience and it was so
yeah.
meaningful.
And so can we protect our children from trauma? You know, I guess you got to define trauma, right? Like,
Yeah.
so is trauma pain and sadness? I mean, yeah, right, some of it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
but that's not trauma. Trauma is when you're experiencing all this pain and sadness alone,
Mm.
and that's when you fall into that pit of despair that causes the anxiety, the depression, um, that makes you feel helpless, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then the next question is, can you protect your kids from pain and sadness?
No.
You can't, right?
No.
And I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I don't want them to get hurt. I don't want them to cry.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what happens every night? They get hurt and they
Yeah.
cry. And as much as we want to protect them, I think that they need adults that are going to be compassionate and caring and be there with them through their pain and sadness, so that they have a level-headed person there that can teach them how to get through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
So
I think. Oh, do you have some? You can go, Carter.
no, I had a question for Hector. I think at Summit Academy, there's just so many different people there. Like you had people from Utah County, like myself, that have never seen a hard time in their whole life. Just kidding. But then you have kids coming from Salt Lake County that have had really rough like upbringings. How have you tried to like, I'm trying to figure out if this even correlates, but like with all these people from different backgrounds, trauma might be different for them. And like for me, it might have been my mom didn't let me drive the Range Rover or something. But
Tough.
how have you tried to help these kids giving them tools to be able to deal with the trauma? Like, because obviously you can't help them. It's situation by situation. So have you like given them like principles to use to help with that?
So everyone's personal life experience is different. And it takes time to understand that there's a culture within a culture itself. Like, for example, I grew up in a Hispanic household, my family's from Mexico, but we're different in the sense that my family's been in the United States for like 50 years, so it's different from somebody who just got here,
Mm-hmm.
or who has generations of people living here. And so everyone is just, you have to teach everything as an individual basis, right? So one of the things that I've learned is if someone's having an issue that is similar to mine, I can understand it on the surface, but I can't understand it beyond the surface because it's not my experience. And me using my experience to justify how they feel is not very professional of me, because their experience is unique, because it's not about me, it's about them. So
Yeah.
these, like, someone comes in and they say, man, I am just devastated and I am depressed because my girlfriend broke up with me. Have I had a girlfriend break up with me? Yeah. Does it give me flashbacks?
I've had lots.
Yeah. Yes, you have, Carter. Lots of them. And I know a lot of them.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say their names.
You were probably their counselor.
I was probably their counseling, having to help them how to break up with you and stuff.
Just go to him, say this.
just step on his shoes, crease his shoes up, and
Ooh. And then he'll break up with you, and then
exactly.
you can
Exactly.
uh,
But anyway, like, my experience is different, and
yeah.
Even though two people that grew up in Utah County right next door to each other, their experience is different, and you don't know, and it's just so hard to generalize. And so
Yeah.
that's why, like, recently, like, the whole Simone Biles thing that just came out, where she decided to pull herself out of the Olympics because
Okay, yeah, I saw a headline, but I didn't hear exactly what happened.
So, I mean, to me, I didn't look too far into it.
Mm-hmm.
She has all the right to do whatever she wants, and
Totally.
my opinion really means nothing. But we have
Right.
so many people on social media that feel like their opinion is super valid on why she did or didn't, and it's unfair or it's fair or justified or unjustified. And to me, it's like, if I don't feel good mentally, emotionally, I can call in sick to work. No one's going to question me. But an athlete can't. Like, I don't know what they do. Like,
Yeah.
my job's hard enough. I can't
Uh-huh.
imagine the pressure that they're under or whatnot. And so to me, it's like, man, that stinks. I would have loved to seen her compete more.
Yeah.
But if it's better for her to not compete, then that's her. That's her. She's the one that's gonna feel what she feels, and she's gonna live with that for the rest of her life. And it's gonna follow her for the rest of her life. You know what I mean? But yeah. So, like, kind of going back to like everyone's like different upbringings and stuff like that, it is hard, and it makes my job as a counselor or psychologist or therapist, their jobs hard. But I think sometimes young people just need someone that cares about them. They're listening to them.
For sure. And it is so, that's the great mystery of life, is the subjectivity to it. It's just everybody is perceiving what's going on differently. One thing I wanted to say with all of this, I've brought this up on the podcast before, but this principle of life being 50-50, this is kind of what I found to be true, is that this is the way I'll kind of look at it, is that life is 50% happy, good, positive, 50% not. And that's kind of what it's, that's kind of an overgeneralization, but just an easy way to grasp that idea that life is not meant to be, like you said, 90% happy. It's not meant to be that way. It's meant to be up and down. There's this book right here, The Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis. Yeah, awesome book. Really recommend it. Just for those of you who don't know, because I'm going to share a passage from it, and if you don't know what the book's about, it won't make any sense. So C.S. Lewis, he takes the role of a demon. So he's on Satan's side in this book. He's kind of getting into the mind of the enemy, and there's one of the master tempters is training his nephew how to lead people away from God. And so his nephew is assigned to a human who just gets baptized to be a Christian, and the nephew's job is to lead him away from God. I won't spoil it any further, but there's a part in the book where I think Screwtape is the uncle. He's teaching his nephew how to tempt. And he says, we need to get the humans to believe that life isn't supposed to undulate, that it's supposed to be a steady hill towards happiness, and that you shouldn't have these lows and these highs and these lows and these highs. We need to get them to believe that it's just meant to be this way or just a straight line, which it's not. And so, because if, us being Christian men, we believe that life is meant to go up and down. We're meant to have opposition in all things. And I think as kids are master observers, I'm sure you see that with your 7 and 4-year-old, like they are just taking in the world, observing everything, probably copying everything you do and say. And so they're going to watch how their mom and dad bounce back from negative emotional experiences, And if they see their mom and dad, oh, it's okay to cry and to feel the sadness, but mom and dad aren't living there for their whole lives. They're going to come out of it and they're going to feel happy and motivated, but then they're going to come back down. And if they see that that's the natural way of life, I think, and we can get into this more, but I think that will help kids process trauma more, because they'll be able to come to you easier, if that makes sense. Because they'll say, oh, I saw mom and dad, especially once they get older, they're going to learn that mom and dad aren't always happy and mom and dad aren't always motivated. They're going to learn that mom and dad are humans and they're undulating just as much as I have my whole life. And they're going to see that, oh, I can relate to them. And, mom and dad have been able to have a good life. So it's a tricky thought. I'm trying to get as much thought out so that we can work with it, if that makes sense. But yeah. Any thoughts, you two?
Yeah, well, I'll say this. Like, I am not a perfect parent at all. I'm not a perfect husband. I'm not a perfect anything by all means.
Mm-hmm.
There's one thing that we do with our kids that they actually like. And it's funny, we do this when we go on like long road trips or whatnot, or we do something, they call it pop quizzes. And so what we do is we give them a scenario of something that could happen and what they would do. And whatever they choose, we talk about it. And in a generation where we're bringing up kids where they're communicating less and less verbally, it's just a fun way to give them kind of like a glimpse of a life experience without them going through it. And people say, learning from your own experience is good, but learning from other people's experiences is even better, right?
Yeah.
And if we go into like sports, repetition is what makes you good, right? But how do you repeat the one life that you have? You can't.
Yeah.
You just have to experience it. And so figuring out ways to talk to your kids about, these mental issues that they're gonna see them. Avoiding them is not the answer. It's like, if we don't talk about sex, our kids will never have sex. Well, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
If we never talk about drugs, they're never gonna do drugs. I'm like,
Yeah.
not, but like, I mean, I'm gonna get super nerdy here, but I'm big into karate movies. And there's a
Nice,
movie
okay.
called 36 Chambers. It's an old movie. If whoever's listening to the pod, if you watch it and you think it's terrible, sorry. It's like dubbed. They're like dubbed. Someone's speaking over them. But
Oh, nice. Yeah.
it's about this guy who wants to be a Shaolin monk, and so he goes into the Shaolin temple to train, and he's pretty cocky. And so he goes out there and he's like, I could do this, and he realizes he can't, and that people have spent their whole life trying to perfect one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it shows him repeating things over and over and over again. And they even show like stills of him thinking in his head what somebody's going to do to him and how he would counteract that.
Mm.
And I watch this movie at least one time a year, especially when basketball season starts, because it reminds me that repetition is going to help me and my players and my students become better at whatever it is they're chasing. And so trying to figure out a way for students to have scenarios when things get hard is super key. And that's what I do as a counselor. I come in here, and when kids are having problems with their parents, we do we kind of like interact, like, hey, okay, I'm your mom, what would you say to me?
Yeah.
And it sounds silly at first, but it helps. It really does. And therapy, I mean, I think everyone could use therapy. I mean, it's talking to someone else about something that you feel. How can that be bad?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, making it acceptable to talk about mental health and seek help is definitely us going in the right direction.
I have
sure.
a question, like with some of the pop quizzes that you do with your daughters. Do you have an example of like one of the examples that you've done, or like kind of a scenario that you've played around with them that you've like seen been impactful for them?
So I guess one that I could think of off the top of my head is I'll say, okay, let's say you're walking down the street with your friends and one of your friends grabs a rock and throws it and breaks a car window. What would you do?
Reese did that the other day.
That was when I was 17, bro, before I was 18.
But so anyways, they'll start thinking and they'll be like, well, first I'd probably go get an adult because I wouldn't know what to do. And I think that's a great way for a 4 to 7-year-old to think, because what can they do? And I think if they understand at a young age that they can't do everything on their own, that's a win.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of us adults think that we can do everything on our own, and that is absolutely false.
Yeah, very, very true. And I think the culture is definitely heading in this direction. My fear would be that the pendulum would swing too far, but I feel like it's well balanced right now, where it's heading in this direction where it's, it's okay to, if you're feeling extremely overwhelmed and you just need one day off from work, and like I did this a few months ago, I was just not in the right headspace, and I just texted my boss. I was like, hey man, can I just take a sick day? Like, just not feeling right. And he's like, yeah, totally, and because there is this balance where you need to push yourself and you need to work with negative emotion, you need to work with them, but there definitely comes a point where it's like, whoa, I really need to talk to somebody, or I really need to take a break. And I love this idea of just talking with people. Carter and I have talked about communication before, and that's part of the communication, is communicating how you're feeling, because it's really hard to figure out exactly what's going on in this complex brain of ours until you talk it out. And once you start talking it out, you'll kind of start talking yourself in circles. And it's just like you need someone to be sitting there with their ears open, and then they can just be sitting there with their ears open, and then you're just talking and talking and talking. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I just got the solution just by talking to you. Like, and sometimes I'll be the person who's listening, and I'll be like, wow, I didn't even say anything, but they just needed ears to hear. And I think that's huge. And one thing I wanted to say before I close this thought is, I've brought this up before, but it's this idea that every individual has a much larger impact on the world than they think, on the world at large. And that's because we're all interconnected. And so, a rough estimate would be, everyone's probably going to know somebody, know a few facts about somebody, know somebody kind of in a personal relationship. They're probably going to know about 1,000 people throughout their life. You're going to know more people, here and there, but I'm talking about, I know their last name, and I know what high school they went to or what state they're from. You're going to know about 1,000 people, and then that person's going to know about 1,000 people, and so on. And it gets to 1 billion really fast, because it's an exponential growth, and so it's like you having an impact on 2 students or 1 student, like you have an impact on Carter. You had a positive impact on Carter. Well, Carter's going to go positively impact 1,000 people because of that. And then each one of those 1,000 people is going to impact 1,000 more people. And you see, whoa, holy cow, I'm way more connected to these almost 8 billion people than I thought. And it's kind of, in a way, I think it scares people to think about that, because then you realize how much of a responsibility you have. But I do want to, I guess, ask, have you had, I'm assuming have you had a mindset like that, where you're like, if I just help this one student or this one athlete in a positive way, I know they're going to go out into the world and help so many other people?
So I will say that I used to have that mindset that if I do this, then they're going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, you can't make people do anything.
True.
And what it was causing me like a lot of internal pain when you would give your all to somebody, when you would open your house to somebody, you invite them to dinner, or you take them out to eat, and then they act like you've never done anything for them. And
Yeah.
what it was doing to me, it was just putting me like in this depressive state,
For
And
sure.
so what I decided to do is, I am going to start doing things without expecting anything in return. And what it did is it took a lot of weight off my shoulders, because I'm just going to do my job and my part, and whatever happens, happens. And, like what you saying, like you impacting one person, and it could lead to another person impacting 1,000 more, or whatnot. The one thing that I hope changes with people's mindset is that we've all had times or decisions that we've made that are not the best, but we don't live there anymore. We're beyond that. And I hope that someday people can get past that as well, because a lot of time when you meet somebody in this negative mental state, you're like, oh my gosh, this person is this, that, and the other. And then you see them when they're better, you need to let go of what they let go as well. And I think culturally, here locally and society-wise, a lot of times people will attach themselves to those negative things because that's the only way they can put you in a box.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I don't want anyone to put me in a box.
Right.
Like, oh, do you remember Mr. Marquez? He did this, that, and the other. And it's like, I'm not that person that I was 4 years ago or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And you guys that have served a mission, you meet people that want to change, that
Mm-hmm.
are seeking some kind of life change, and how fair would it be for us to view them and see them for everything they don't want to be, and that's why mental health is so tricky, because
Mm-hmm.
you only see them when they have this breakdown, and it's hard. I fall guilty to that sometimes too, but I always try to retrain myself to be like, you know what, you know, Carter is a different person now. He's not the person he used to be. And I think that is the life goal of all of us, right? To be better than we were yesterday,
Yeah.
the week before. And I mean, that's that up and down that we've talked about, and,
Yeah.
and it's okay. It's
Mm-hmm. It's okay, and it's going to happen, and if you just accept that, it's something you have to always remind yourself of, probably for the rest of your life, but when you're in those sad moments, okay, yeah, I'm really sad right now, something might have just happened, but it's like, I know this is going to pass. And also, when you're even in those happy moments, you need to know this is going to pass, so I'm going to soak it up right now, and I'm going to be in this present moment and soak it up. There's a story I kind of wanted to relate. It's not super tied into this exact conversation, but it's kind of about parenting. I just wanted to say it shortly. I just kind of been having this feeling to do so. But basically, it's just kind of the psychoanalyst view on the story of Sleeping Beauty. And it's really interesting. Um, if you start to dissect the old Disney movies, they have a lot of psychology buried in them. They're very, at least
Like
this is
karate movies.
yeah, see, it's like, yeah, like karate movies. But the story of Sleeping Beauty, I'll keep it really short, but it's just fascinating to me, because the story of Sleeping Beauty is, I can't remember the Sleeping Beauty. I think, does she have a name? I think she has a name. Anyways, Sleeping Beauty's parents shelter her from everything. They don't want her to experience the negative in life. And then when Maleficent wants to come to the christening party, they forget to send her an invitation. They don't want it, because the symbolism of that is they don't want any evil or negativity to come into their daughter's life. They want their daughter to live a life of roses, and so they overprotect her from these things. And what that does is it makes her unconscious eventually, because what happens is, the first guy she ever meets, she falls so deeply in love with him, and then when he leaves, she literally gets PTSD so bad that she falls unconscious, because she's never experienced all these bad things, because her parents have completely sheltered her. And the psychoanalyst view is that the idea of the prince coming and kissing her and bringing her back to consciousness is not about a male female thing. It's about a feminine consciousness and a masculine consciousness. All of us have feminine parts of our consciousness and masculine parts of our consciousness, and the masculine part is the thing that kind of gets you up in the morning and gets you to work, and gets you to provide and to protect. And males and females both have this. So the idea is that the masculine part of her consciousness is what brings her back to consciousness. And so I think that allowing your children, teaching them the correct principles, guiding them as much as you can, but really, I know this is going to be very difficult for me as a father, but just accepting the fact that my kids are going to be in those troughs of life where they're feeling bad, or they're exposed to evil or things I would much rather them not have to see, but I know they're going to see it. And the sooner you accept that and let your children completely feel all that life has to offer, then they're going to be conscious. And you want a conscious child. You want your child to be conscious throughout life. And so I think that idea is really, really worth thinking about, this psychoanalyst view of Sleeping Beauty, and looking at, you need both sides of your consciousness. But just really, if you're feeling negative emotion, just accept it. Accept it, let it be, stop resisting it, because what you resist persists. And if you can just not resist, if you can accept the sadness, then all of a sudden you're going to start coming out of it. It's going to be really surprising. Obviously, that's a generalization, but for a lot of people, as soon as you accept your anxiety or your sadness, you're going to start saying, wow, I can actually work with this. This is okay. It's not completely debilitating. But when I was completely resisting it, it felt like it was smothering me and I couldn't even get out of bed. But the sooner you accept the fact that life is 50-50, it's happy, sad, you'll get mad, you'll get frustrated, you'll get motivated, you'll get inspired. As soon as you can accept the full range of emotion, your life is going to start to become really beautiful.
Yeah. And I mean, we wouldn't have a person like Taylor Swift if she wouldn't accept the sadness in her life, you know?
Oh man, we
Breakup.
wouldn't have those songs. Oh,
I know.
that would be a sad world.
I wanted to just really quickly kind of maybe a little bit in closing. I loved how you said that a lot of the times people just need someone to be there for them, need someone that you can talk to, someone that can be there to support them. And I've kind of characterized that as trying to make everyone feel special in my life. And I've seen how big of an impact that's made in my life, trying to make everyone feel special. And it's something that I try really hard to do. And so you're someone that I view as a master of that. I think everyone at Summit Academy knew that they could go into Mr. Marquez's office and talk to him, and he was going to make them feel like $1,000,000. And that's something that I really want to continue to work into my life. So I'm curious, what are some of the ways that you've done that? Because I don't know if you know or no, this fly is driving me crazy. But like throughout high school, like those 2 years at Summit Academy, I would say was the hardest years of my life, whether it's mental illness or struggling with that. And knowing that I had Mr. Marquez there, or I had, my friends there, not my math teacher, I hated her. But like just knowing that you were there for me was like huge. And it was just like a beacon of light, during some of these dark times. So I'm just curious to pick your brain, how you've been able to get to that point where, I mean, you might not admit it, but everyone at a school knew that you made them feel special.
Cool. That's a tough question, Carter. I don't know. I just try not to make it about myself, and sometimes distracting students from the obvious is important. I mean, everyone's just different. I mean, getting people out of their comfort zone. I mean, everything just kind of in the air, depending on what's going on. We had talked a little bit about how you had mentioned people are coming to, let's say, that particular school with different cultural backgrounds and whatnot. And knowing that, I think, is important, because if you don't know your background to why things are the way they are, then how can you help somebody? Like, there's certain schools here locally that the social and cultural pressure is so high to get certain grades or to go to your congregation on Sunday or to go on a mission. And if you don't, like, man, or if you feel that you don't want to, like, the ripple effect that you think it might have or that it does have affects everybody, you know what I mean? And so everyone's just so different. And I don't know, like, I wouldn't say that I have mastered it, because I don't think that's possible, but I just try to be in tune with what's really going on. And I can't force someone to tell me what's going on, but hopefully through time I can ask the right questions to help guide me, to say the right thing or to simply listen. And listening is something that is sometimes forgotten, and people with mental health concerns just want someone to listen to them, because maybe their issues go far beyond the help that I could provide at school, where they have to seek help outside of school. creating safe places is important. Like us here talking, we talked earlier about before we got on air, like we're basically trying to make this organic, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How can it be organic if there isn't comfort?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't that go the same way with any relationship we have, whether it's professional, whether it's
Girls.
kids, with yes, with girls, Carter. uh, but but yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a hard question to answer. I don't know if I answered it or not, but I was just real with everybody. I just try to keep it real, and in the long term, I think people can appreciate that. I wasn't a jerk about being real. I was just upfront, and I listened. And you know, I mean, there's kids that I talk to that don't like me, and that's okay. I mean, I can't please everybody, and accepting that is hard, but I'm not going to lose sleep over somebody not liking me because I didn't want to change their schedule. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I love how you were talking about trying to understand their background and um, how that also affects being able to help them with their anxieties or depressions and stuff like that. Um, because for me, I don't remember like growing up a whole lot of like the Sunday school lessons I went to or pre-scorm lessons, or I don't remember a whole lot of like specific one-on-one conversations even with just you personally, but I remember the way that I felt around them. I remember the way that I felt loved, or I remember the way that I felt, treated like real.
Mhm.
And I think that is what makes the biggest difference in young adults' lives. Because right now I teach seminary for my job. Like I'm a teacher. And so I try and apply that. I'm like, the chances that these kids take anything away gospel wise every single time, that will just be a bonus. But if they know that Brother Anderson loved them, that's what I'm going for. And so like for me, I love that you were able to do that and a little bit formulate that with your thoughts.
And here's something that I will say that I learned throughout the years is I think with my coaching background, a lot of times I wanted to create this play or this offense that was so amazing that, man, it's just going to change lives type of a thing, which was the dumbest thing I ever thought of, right? And I came to a point where it's like, you know what? In the long run, no one's going to remember how many wins we had. No one's going to remember what I drew up at a timeout, but they're going to remember how I treated them. And that changed the way that I started to coach, because in a normal high school setting, there's kids that just play because that's fun. There's some kids that play because their parents make them. There's some kids play because they're good, and there's some kids that play because they want to, move forward with it or whatnot, and um, but like, yeah, I just want people to know how I treated them, and like a lot of, I heard this question being asked to somebody like, what legacy do you want to leave behind? And I hope that people remember me for how I treated them. And if there's two things that I could help people with to understand mental health is to have more empathy, um, and to pay attention. We're so caught up in our electronic devices, and I'm guilty of this too, but we just need to pay attention. And whether you're newly married or married for 10 years or dating, when you pay attention, they notice. So Carter, maybe you're not paying attention,
I
but
know.
it, I, I promise you, it's gonna go a long way when you notice things that you know you anybody else typically wouldn't notice. It goes a long way, and but I mean, it's just this, even though mental health has been around forever, it's just an evolving thing, and everyone has an opinion, and people have their 2 cents, and I think the worst thing that you can say is just get over it. And I think, I mean, we could go on for hours talking about um, culturally how a lot of people grew up with their parents telling them to get over it. and that's not how you solve the mental health crisis that we're having. So.
Yeah, I think one of the things that me and Reese have talked about with the podcast is being able to, at very worst case scenario, nobody listens, but we have an opportunity to be able to share our thoughts and have almost like
Like a journal.
video and audio journal for, you know, our generations of kids or whatever. And so I would ask you, like in a similar sense, you know, this is an opportunity for you to have, you know, when your kids grow up, you can maybe show them, you know, this video or audio journal. What's something that you would want to say to them that maybe when they're 16 or 17 that you would want them to know, and that they could like go back and look and be like, oh wow, like this was cool, dad was like trying to teach me this, you know, at the time when I was 7 and 4.
Whew, you're gonna make me
Good question.
You're gonna make me get emotional here, Carter. I would say to them that I'm sorry, and the reason I say that is because I didn't grow up with a dad, you know, and I had a stepdad, and life was not the easiest. So I every day I'm learning how to be a father, and it is not easy, and I suck sometimes, and sometimes my wife lets me know that I suck.
That means you have a good wife.
I do have a good wife. Um, it's just hard, man. Being a parent is hard, and if anyone says that being a parent is easy, they're lying. Is it fun? Yes. It's an adventure, and I just hope that I haven't created, I don't know, this list of traumatic things for them to want to talk to a therapist about to feel better about themselves, because you know, I love, obviously I love my little girls, and I love all the students that I work with, and it just, life is hard, and that's okay. I signed up to be here, and I signed up to be a dad, and I just hope that when it's all said and done, that I have taught my kids something that they can take and put into their life in a positive way.
Awesome. Well, yeah, we really appreciate you carving some time out to sit down with us and chat a little bit. I think this was great. It was definitely beneficial for me. So yeah, just want to express our gratitude. So thank you so much, Hector.
Yeah, man. Anytime you guys don't have anybody to talk to, I mean, I'm here for both of you.
Awesome. Yeah, and I can feel that. And it really is, I guess the wrap up thoughts would be, it really is these one-on-one relationships. You know, we need to work. Everyone's an individual. Everybody's perceiving the world differently. Everybody has their stuff. And so the remedy to, you know, the mental health crisis, or even just on small scale things, just the remedy is one-on-one relationships and learning how to cultivate those. And then, like you said, being selfless. It's not about you, it's about the other person. And so you're a great example of that. And I'm sure everyone who listens to this or sees this will think the same. So yeah, thank you so much, man.
All right, man.
Okay, we'll see y'all next episode, and we'll drop Hector's social media so you can go give him a follow. He's dropping some cool basketball stuff all the time, as well as some inspirational quotes every once in a while. So
that's what I'm talking
appreciate
about.
you coming on, and we'll see y'all next time.
All right, see you guys. Love you.